Hi there, and thank you for joining us for this Satori software webinar, Bulk Mailer Add-ons, Simply Powerful Functionality. Before we get started, let's just cover a couple of quick items here. First off, if you participate in social media, like Kim and Bob, well, you can join Satori Software on Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Next, as we always mention, this webinar is being recorded, and well, by this afternoon is my hope. I should have the recording posted up on the SatoriSoftware.com website so that in the event you have to drop off, you can go back and pick up what you missed. Now, very, very important, and we like to call it the Stump, Bob, and Kim Show. Questions, if you've got them, put them into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. See it over there? Yeah. Okay, I'm pointing at it, but you guys can't see that. In any case, put your questions into that box, and then I'll be gathering those up, and then we'll throw them out to Kim and Bob. And really, nothing is off limits. They really do like to answer questions. So if you got something, put it in that box, and I'll make sure that they get a look at it. Finally, we're looking at around 60 minutes for this webinar, but this is one that I'm super excited about. And Kim is pretty much beside herself. She worked hours, very long hours into the night on these slides. And so we might run a little long today, especially if we get a lot of questions coming in or Bob gets off on one of his kicks. If we run long and you have to drop off, we want to be respectful of your time, so feel free to drop off. And like I said, the recording will be posted up on the SatoriSoftware.com website, hopefully this afternoon. And so I am introducing a few people here along the way. Let's go ahead and get the introductions out of the way. First off, we've got Bob Shimmick, Senior Director of Postal Affairs for Satori Software. Hello, Bob.
Hello.
And you are a regular host of Postal Affairs with Bob Shimmick. It's a Monday morning program, all the industry news that's fit to print or broadcast or whatever it is we do here. Every Monday morning you talk about things people need to know in mailing.
Yeah, we've been settling into a fun routine there.
Yeah. It seems like you've discovered my buttons to push. We've also got Kim Mock here in the studio, and Kim is a senior product manager. She actually is the person here at Satori who owns the bulk mailer product.
That's right.
So pretty much everybody works for you, right, Kim?
Well, not everybody. No, it's been an interesting journey with bulk mailer, and we're excited with the direction that we're headed.
So the cool thing here is that the add-ons that we're going to be talking about, bulk mailer has a certain core functionality. Mm-hmm. But then these add-ons, it's an extensible product. That means that things can be plugged into it that expand the functionality. And these add-ons are a collection of items that some of them have come from customer suggestions, some of them have come out of, all of them have come out of customer needs. But you as the product owner get an opportunity to sort of say, these are the things we need, these are the things that customers need, these are the combinations that they go in.
That's right. So, everybody has a core set of functionality that they need, but based on your individual business, you might have some additional functionality that may apply to you. And we're going to be covering a lot of that today. We've got a lot of different add-ons to talk about, and it'll be interesting to see how those fit into your business.
So what we're going to be doing here is that Kim will be covering the product-oriented things. She's going to be talking a little bit about bulk mailer basics and then expanding that, talking about each of the add-ons. Bob's going to talk a bit about regulatory compliance and especially about some of the add-ons go well together. It turns out that this is a good one to go with that one, and most people who purchase this one should have this one. And so he's going to kind of give us a little view under the hood. And then I'm going to do the ringmaster thing here, and I'm going to take the questions and comments that come in and field them across as appropriate in real time, or like I said, gathered up at the end. So we got a great webinar. I'm super excited about this one because bulk mailer is a cool product to begin with, but most people don't tap all of the functionality.
That's right.
They don't use everything that's available to them, and we'd like to change that. So Kim, you want to start off from here?
All right, so we've got a lot of things to talk about today. We do have quite a few different add-ons that are available with bulk mailer. And so rather than bore you with the list here, I just kind of made a little word cloud to kind of cover what we're doing here. And so basically what we'll do is we'll kind of talk about each of the individual add-ons, why you might be interested in using one of those add-ons and how to access it within your bulk mailer product. Of course, if you're interested in any of these add-ons, feel free to contact our sales department. They're very knowledgeable about each of the different add-ons, and they can kind of help walk you through and see if it makes sense for you to actually purchase one of those add-ons or even use a free trial.
And that phone number is actually on a slide at the end of this presentation. So
That's right.
we'll put the phone number up there while we're doing the question and answer. And the one thing that I will mention this later on, but our sales folks are really good about trying to match the right add-ons to the customer, to the needs. So if you say, hey, I heard this thing, but I didn't totally understand, is this right for me? They're the ones to call. They're not going to sell you something you don't need. So if you call and it turns out it just doesn't fit, don't worry about it. They're not going to sell it to you.
That's right. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dive right in. We don't have a lot of time and we have a lot of add-ons to talk about. So first, let's talk about probably everybody's favorite add-on, and that is our Unlimited Move Update add-on. So for those of you who use NCOA link processing, which if you're a mailer today, you should be using NCOA link processing. It's the easiest way for you to get move update information and stay in compliance to keep your mailings compliant. Now, with the Unlimited Move Update add-on, basically what you're doing is you're moving away from the credit-based system of paying for your move updates, and you actually get an all-you-can-eat license. So as many records as you can process, you can actually use them as much as you want, no matter what time of year. You don't have to worry about purchasing additional credits if you run out, and everything just kind of runs along the way there.
All you can eat.
That's right.
Now, Bob, what were you saying? When we were talking about this webinar, this one came up and we talked about unlimited, and you said,
Well, there's a lot of, as we are starting to look at the fall mailing season, obviously volumes are going to be picking up. There's going to be a lot more stuff that's going to be going out. This might be the point in time to actually look at the volumes and then what your current credit run rate is and whether or not it makes sense for you to look at going to an all-you-can-eat type approach, especially with this fall mailing season now. Just, it's, we're kind of a little bit on the very beginning of it, but, once we get, another month or two in, things are definitely going to start ramping up.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than being halfway through a job or, you're running something late at night and you run out of credits and you need to get more credits to keep your job running. And so with the Unlimited Move Update option, you don't have to worry about that. You've got all the credits you need. It's just all you can eat. So you don't have to worry about running things on a Saturday or a Sunday.
So sense of scope here, unlimited, suited for small, medium, or large mailers.
Well, really, any size of mailer can use the Unlimited Move Update option. Sometimes you're running really large lists, but you don't run them very frequently. We have some customers who are doing that. And then sometimes you're running just a whole bunch of these little tiny jobs, maybe 500, 2,000 pieces at a time. And if you're at a volume where you're running those fairly frequently, then this Unlimited Move Update option can give you that peace of mind that you're not actually going to be running out of credits at any time.
And you can actually, you don't have to worry about it. So even if you have small lists, you can run them every time.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, oh, no, I'm going to save some money and not run it this time. And of course, then run the risk of returned mail.
Exactly. So we did want to point out that, of course, move update processing is required for first class and standard mail and kind of for periodicals as well. Periodicals kind of has their own rules around move update, but NCOA is going to give you the information that you need to update your addresses. But even if you're mailing something like bound printed matter or parcels, making sure that you have the most current address for your record is going to be really important, because then you're saving that forwarding time, you're saving the hassle, and you're also showing the customer that you care about them and that you know where their mail needs to be sent.
Sure.
So to access Move Update inside of Bulk Mailer, the Move Update add-on is, or the Move Update feature, of course, is in the address correction or the address quality section there of Bulk Mailer. And to purchase the Move Update add-on, you would just contact the sales account, and then we would actually enable that on our end. So there's no key to add, or I think there is a key, but it's pretty straightforward to just add it, and then you have access to everything that you need there. So talking about unlimited processing, another unlimited service that we have available is walk sequencing. So for those of you who are blanketing an area, so if you're mailing to every address in a neighborhood or a zip code, you have access to some of the best postal discounts that are on the market today. So that's the saturation and the high density rates that are available. These are the best discounts that you can get for standard mail. In order to achieve those rates, you do need to prepare your mail in order of walk sequence, and you get that number from a service like our walk sequencing. This is within the data services section of Bulk Mailer. So we do have the credit-based system for all of our data services, but for walk sequencing in particular, we do offer our customers the option to purchase the walk sequencing as an unlimited add-on. So again, just like Move Update, you can run this on any list. You don't have to worry about, okay, do I run it? Do I not? And especially if you're pretty regularly mailing to some concentrated areas, you can get some really nice discounts there.
Because you're doing all the work.
Yeah. So you're doing the work, but then, if you put it into your process, you don't have to think about it from job to job. That's just something that you do as part of your standard process.
Sure.
With this one also, there's one thing to keep in mind too when you're looking at going with an unlimited option is, you could get into a routine of essentially every single job that you're mailing, run it through walk sequence, and even if you don't have the entire mailing qualify for walk sequence rates, maybe you have a handful of routes where there is some good density, and you could qualify for that best price. Even though it may be incremental in nature, there could be savings that you see, for potentially any list, even if it is disperse in general, but have a few areas of concentration. You can still take advantage of that price then, and the additional discounts or the best rate you can get when it comes to postage.
So both of these, there seems to be a reoccurring theme out of two of them so far, is that if you're not doing this, you may be leaving money sitting on the table.
That's right.
You're spending money, you're paying the post office to do work you can do yourself.
That's right.
True.
Yeah. So one of the nice things about this is everything just kind of builds up, and the feedback that we've gotten from our unlimited walk sequence customers is that the add-on itself has actually paid for itself within a really short span of time, just in the discounts that they're able to achieve.
I like that.
I always like things that pay for themselves, right? And then all the benefits go back into your own pocket. Right?
You had me at all you can eat.
Yep. So the walk sequence add-on, or the walk sequence feature, is available in the data services section of Bulk Mailer, and then once you have that add-on added to your account on our end, then you'll see that there's no actual credit cost for walk sequence processing within Bulk Mailer. So talking a little bit about, and then after you've selected the walk sequence, you've added those numbers. Obviously, you'll want to select the carrier route walk sequence sort level when you're doing your processing, just to make sure that you can achieve those discounts. Just tells the sort engine to prepare for that sort level. So talking a little bit about data services, we had a whole webinar about this last week. And so if you haven't watched that, then definitely go back. The video is posted on our website. And
it was called Building Your Bulk Mailer Services. And that was Kim and I and Corey Bragg on July 9th. So that's posted up on the SatoriSoftware.com in the site in the webinars section.
That's right. Yeah. So if you haven't watched that, then please do go back and rewatch that data services webinar, because we go into each of the different services in great detail. So, but we do have some additional services in addition to the walk sequencing that are available. Obviously, we do have a service called ECOA, which allows you to get some moves that are not available through the USPS NCOA Link service. We have a suppression suite that allows you to suppress records that are on a do not mail list, anybody who's deceased or at an incarceration facility. We also have a feature to fill out the remainder of your address with apartment information, and we have a service to append some names and gender information to your records as well.
During that webinar, I was really impressed with the potential for money savings in the data services section. This one alone just stunned me at how much money you could be leaving on the table. Like mailing to deceased persons. You talked about the sensitivity of that's not the nicest thing that you could do. And so, not to mention the fact the savings if you don't mail to them in the first place. So these just made sense. These seemed awful common sense. In fact, I found myself sitting there thinking, why do we have to have a webinar about this? This makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just a matter of getting the message out there that these services are available. And, like you said, with the deceased processing and even do not mail, sending mail to someone who's not going to respond and may even be hostile to your query is just not a good business. And so being able to suppress those records is really a key feature that you can offer that allows you to make the most for your marketing dollar.
I had never thought about the incarcerated list, but that one makes sense as well.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do on the other side of that. So obviously suppressing those records makes a lot of sense in most cases.
And one thing to remember too, like if we look at, for example, the ECOA, as of right now, when someone moves, there is no mandate to record that move with the Postal Service.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely up to the user to fill out a move update form, but there is no mandate that they have to. And there's some people that, for one reason or another, don't want to be found. But, if they do want their magazine subscriptions to go with them and they, maybe notify that through another service, that's where we're getting some of this additional information that the Postal Service may not have.
Yeah.
A question just came in since you had mentioned unlimited on the last couple. They were talking about suppression suites and wondering whether or not there's an unlimited.
At this point, we don't have an unlimited for our other data services. Right now, it's only for the walk sequence data service option.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll look at that and see if that's something that we could offer in the future. At this point, I don't know. I don't know how. I'd have to take a look at the numbers and see how that works out. But that does make a little bit of sense. But yeah, it's really an interesting way of being able to get that data. And kind of one of the things that we've found, I actually lead a group called User Group 5 through the Mailer Technical Advisory Committee. And there are a lot of problems with people not filling out their mover cards at the post office. So, and this is especially, as you might imagine, the younger generations. They're very digital oriented. They're very, everything's done through Facebook or Instagram or whatever the latest thing is these days, and so they don't even think to talk to the post office when they move. They don't even think about it. And so, but again, they'll tell their magazine subscriptions. They'll obviously tell, maybe the electric company or something like that.
And ECOA picks these sources up.
Yeah, and so ECOA is a list of, it's actually several sources that gather this information, and they're all compiled into one service. So you can get that updated address. So even if the post office, has move information, sometimes they can't forward it. They know that person no longer lives at that address, but they don't have the extra information to forward it. And so sending mail and not getting to the recipient is just wasted money. So, and then of course the data services are all available in that data services section of the address quality tab there in Bulk Mailer.
And you mentioned during that last webinar, head of household is also gender.
Yeah. So one of the things with head of household is, especially with some of the marketing techniques that are happening today, is
people are getting razor sharp with their targeting.
Well, and it makes sense, right? You're going to send a different message to someone who has a different profile. So you're going to send something different to a college student versus a retiree.
Sure. And gone are the days of dear sir or madam.
Yep. Yeah, getting that personal level, even just at the introduction of a letter can really make the difference in that personalization and getting that connection with the recipient. So the next one that we wanted to talk about is our Geocode add-on. So this is an add-on that's available that kind of appends to our address correction section there in Bulk Mailer. And what it's going to do is it's going to add the latitude and longitude information to each of the records that you have in your database. Now that in and of itself isn't terribly interesting because then you just have a set of coordinates. However, one of the things that you can do once you have that set of coordinates is you can actually start calculating radiuses, and you can actually start targeting based on an area of a map. So for example, if there's a new retail store that's going to be going into an area, you have a large list of customers and you want to let them know that that you have this new store opening, it's nearby, and maybe give them a coupon to come into the new store. What you can do is you can run your whole list through Geocode, append the latitude and longitude, and then select a radius within sight of that new store. So that can be a really interesting way of being able to target a specific area just based on their location. And then you can say, or even if you have a large list and you have several stores, you can say, okay, these groups, I want to point to this location, and this other group, I want to, you have something downtown and then you have something on the North Hill. you want to be able to segment your customers those ways and send them to the correct store, then you can use that data.
And mark my words, if Bob gets his way, this is going to be a really useful feature because Bob's a big advocate of the USPS starting delivery by gyrocopter.
Yes.
Well, you have a certain radius for those gyrocopters, right?
Exactly.
They can only
run
fly
out of
so
fuel.
long.
You need to land them on a lawn somewhere.
That's right. So to access the Geocode add-on, you would add the key, and then within the address correction wizard, you would select the lookup latitude and longitude option within the address correction wizard there. And then once you have that latitude and longitude added to your list, then you can go into the group wizard, and there's actually a specific tab that's just all about Geocode. And what you can do is you can enter in a zip code you could be a 5-digit zip code all the way down to a 9-digit zip code. So you can get really specific about the information there. And then you can say, I want something within a certain radius of this zip code. I want something outside the radius. Or you can even do, which I think is kind of interesting, a donut. So you can actually say, okay, I don't want downtown Seattle, but I want the neighborhoods, but not the cities that are outside of it. So if you want to target those individual areas, you can do that with the between. So
it's a 9 o'clock webinar for us, and you're talking about all you can eat and donuts. This is not getting any better.
Did you have breakfast this morning?
Would have been smart.
Oh, well, we'll get you something after the webinar. So the next one that we wanted to talk about is RDI, and this is also available within address correction. And what this does is this allows you to look up the difference between a residential address and other addresses, which are usually businesses. So that in and of itself is kind of an interesting thing. But then also what you can do with this is you can actually tell, okay, this is going to be a residence. They're going to have a little bit more time with their mail. You're going to have more confidence that it's going to get to the end recipient, where obviously if you're sending to a business, perhaps it has to go through an administrator to get to the right person. You're going to have a more timely delivery with your residences. Also, one of the really interesting things is when you're starting to compare postage for parcels. So as much as USPS doesn't like to admit it, they are not the only parcel delivery service in this country. And so there are a couple of different options that are out there, and their delivery charges are based on whether you're on their normal routes or if they're outside the route. So outside the route is generally a residence, and there's usually a surcharge for delivering to a residence, where the USPS doesn't have that, but you can actually start using that information to compare the different prices and get the best deal for your parcel delivery.
So one thing to note here with RDI is when the Postal Service first came out with that RDI as a solution that could be used, they were very, very restrictive on who could actually use it. And it was restricted to those people that were doing purely parcel mailings. Mm-hmm. And that has now changed. It changed a couple of years back, but I think because they had such a tight hold on who could use this when it originally came out, this is one of the ones that are relatively not used, but could add a lot of value. And so now that the Postal Service has kind of changed the approach and said it can be used by anyone for mailing purposes, it's really opened it up and can be used by a lot more people now. But I think its usage has still been pretty limited in scope so far.
Yeah, and a lot of people could really benefit from it. And it's not the hurdle that it used to be. You actually had to license it directly from the post office. You had to get their discs and install it separately. Now they allow you to package it with a software product like Bulk Mailer, and so you can actually purchase the license directly from Satori, and we fulfill that directly to you. So it's a pretty easy installation, just like any other address correction file.
So I've got a couple of questions coming in, and rather than save them up towards the end, I want to ask this one so we can refer to it as we go through.
Sure.
Questions about combining these. Mm-hmm. Specifically, one of the questions asks, could you geocode and then use RDI to eliminate either the businesses or the residences?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a really good way of doing it, and then especially with these address correction add-ons, it really makes sense to bundle them together because especially with Geocode and RDI, they really are about targeting, right? So if making sure that you're actually targeting the specific person that you're actually trying to reach, the target market for your mailing, then you're going to have a more powerful mailing. You're going to get more ROI on that mailing, and it's going to be more of a success than if you just blanket everything. Now, there are some cases where you do want to send out the pizza coupon to everybody because who doesn't like pizza, right? But if you're doing something specific, then
Especially all you can eat pizza.
yeah, we're just getting you more and more hungry here.
But so since we're talking about mixing and matching too, this is still an application too, where even if you were looking at saying I only want to mail to residents, also do the walk sequence, and you could still potentially qualify for the carrier route rates and the walk sequence rates, even if you are only mailing to residents and excluding businesses.
So this is one of those things where you need to call our experts, say, here's what I'm trying to do, and then have them figure out the package that works for you.
Yeah. There's a lot of different combinations that you can make.
Some subtleties to this.
Yeah.
Cool.
So to access the RDI, again, it's right in the address correction wizard there, and you'll see that right at the bottom of the additional data. Look up the residential addresses, and basically this is just a flag that's available inside of your record. It's a yes or no, it's a residence or it's not a residence. If it's not a residence, you can pretty reasonably assume that it's going to be a business. So the next one, this one might take a while because merge purge is a huge topic. And so this is, again, all about combining lists and selecting records within your list, making sure that you're getting the best possible record that's available in your list so that you're really getting the complete picture of your customers and you're mailing to the right people. So there are several different things that we have available inside the Merge Purge add-on, and so I kind of want to go through each of them in turn. So the first option that you'll see there at the top with the kind of the two circles that are combining to become one is the idea of just combining lists and then removing the duplicates. One of the extra things that this isn't just importing two lists and then removing the duplicates. This is also merging that data. So for example, if you have one list that has names, addresses, and their car model, and then you have another list that has their names, addresses, and maybe it has an account number and their last purchase information, and maybe some information about their profile, so maybe their income level, you can actually use the Merge Purge tool to combine that information into a master record.
So this is a smart combine then.
Yeah. This isn't just a plain dedupe. This is a merging of that information.
So now I'm going to have
record.
Name, address, car model, income level, and everything all in one list.
Yeah, and so when you start getting that extra data, that becomes really interesting because then you can start taking a look at that extra data and seeing, okay, well, if they bought an Audi and they're at this income level, but they bought it, 5 years ago, then maybe I want to use this other marketing tool versus if they're just using a Kia and they're at a different income level.
Hey.
Yeah, well. But there are different marketing schemes that you have for different profiles, and so being able to create that master record that has everything in it, that gives you the information that you need to make those selections and those decisions.
And if your lists are very long at all, doing this by hand is prohibitive.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hand do this for anything more than 50 records. So it's and
really, 50 is a pretty small mailing.
It is, but your eyes start to cross over, and anytime you're doing something manually, you're bound to make a mistake. Especially if everybody does this in Excel, and I'm guilty of it as well. But Excel, if you do the wrong sort of the wrong column at the wrong time, everything gets screwed up, and I've been bitten by that way more times than I want to admit. And so doing this in Excel is not the best way to do it.
I always end
People
up
do it
with
all the time.
mismatches, so it sorts on the wrong column but
Yep.
doesn't expand it. So now I have the wrong first names with the wrong last names, and it just gets
Yep.
worse from there.
Yeah, it's a big mess. So the nice thing about this tool is it's going to keep the integrity of the record. You're not going to wind up with,
Cool.
the wrong name, wrong last name with the right first name. And so
Kim Shimmick and Bob Mock.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
No, not with the Merge Purge add-on.
So embarrassing.
Yeah. So that's the first option, which is kind of the basic thing, just taking two lists and merging the data within them and eliminating any of the duplicates. The next option is we call it an exclusion record, and I like to call this the kill list option. So obviously you're going to run through. I know it's a little dramatic, but you're going to
need background music for this.
And so, but basically, there are a lot of times where you're going to be doing a mailing and you want to exclude some records that had been done in a previous mailing, or you have your own internal do not mail list or something along those lines, and you want to exclude the records out of your main mailing that were part of another list. And so this isn't to do with the DMA do not mail list. Of course, you want to use the suppression services and data services for that. But if you have your own internal list of do not mail, or if you have, or if you want to exclude, say you have your whole list of customers and you want to exclude the people who haven't purchased within the last 5 years, then that's what you can do with this second option. Is you can take that master list and extract some of the records that you don't want to mail out of. And then kind of the inverse of that is what we call an inclusion record, and that's finding the records that are common between two separate files. So if you have a list of your master list, and then you also have a list of people who are in your neighborhood who have a certain income level, and you want to be able to find who your customers are at that certain income level, then you can use that inclusion record option to find the commonalities between two or multiple files. So when we have the little circles there, it's not necessarily just one file, it could be several. So let's kind of walk through a little bit more of the Merge Purge Wizard. We could really just do a whole webinar on this add-on. There's so much to it. But so basically what you'll do is you'll go in and you'll define your original file. So this could be one file or it could be several. You can have many. I've processed up to about 20 different files as just kind of your core list. And then you start selecting, how do you want to group these records? Do you want one record per individual? Maybe you want to combine them into a family. So for example, anybody with the same last name, or if you want to combine everyone at an address, you just want one record per address, you can select that option. And if you want to combine people, then you can start to define what happens when you find two people that at the same address with similar names. So if you find two people with the same last name, do you want to combine them so it's John and Mary, or do you want to say the Smith family, something along those lines? You can actually define how to merge those records together. And then you can also do the same for any of the additional fields that you have in Bulk Mailer as well. So for example, if you do have things like their car model or their income level or their gender or anything like that, you can actually use those user-defined fields and actually portion out that information as it makes sense for you. Then if you're using an exclusion or an inclusion list, then you can define that. And again, that could be several different lists as well. And then all that information gets output. You'll have a master file that's everything cleaned up and all ready to go. And then you'll also have some other files that are available to show you which records were duplicates, which ones were excluded because they were part of a different list, anything like that. So you actually get the complete picture of what happened when that mail was processed, or that list was processed. So there's a lot to the Merge Purge tool. If you're interested in that, then I definitely recommend calling in and seeing if that's going to be something that will work for you, because there's a lot of stuff behind that add-on there. So the next one that we wanted to talk about was palletization. And for those of you who are in full service land or thinking about getting into full service, you've probably heard a thing or two about palletization. So this is a requirement, as much as the post office hasn't really publicized it. If you're mailing at a certain volume, you actually are required to palletize. And so in order to do that, you're going to be placing your trays, sacks, or bundles all on a mutual pallet, all headed to the same destination. And the post office actually has a one-page cheat sheet now to define when palletization is required and when it's not. It's actually super complicated, and I didn't want to include the screenshot of that because it's really kind of ugly. So, but if you contact us, we can get you a copy of that USPS cheat sheet for when palletization is required and when it's not. There are a couple cases where you can get postal discounts for palletization for periodicals, and then just this year they added a discount for standard mail if you palletize to an FSS scheme. So try saying that 3 times fast.
Right.
And so there actually are some postal discounts now that are happening if you do some palletization. So finally, mailers are starting to get some benefit from palletizing. That's not just an internal efficiency there.
Right. And as you noted, as customers have been onboarding to full service, that has given the Postal Service additional visibility into their mail volumes, and it has raised this issue up of, hey, you're at a sufficient level that you really should be palletizing. And, historically, the Postal Service didn't have that visibility, and it really was up to the mailer to decide if they wanted to do palletization or not, because there is also a fair amount of investment as far as additional equipment that may be needed to move pallets around, staging, that kind of stuff. But, now that the Postal Service is getting additional visibility, this is something that, if you start hitting sufficient volumes, the Postal Service will come and say, hey, you need to start palletizing this.
And that threshold is lower than you might think. I mean, you were commenting that your Christmas card list this year finally hit the threshold for palletization. So that could happen sooner than you're expecting.
Right, yeah. It really doesn't take a whole lot of volume to hit some of those points.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's kind of this combination of where you're dropping the mail and then also your mail volume. So that the one-page cheat sheet is kind of my go-to, because you kind of have to walk through and say, okay, am I doing drop shipment? Am I doing bundles or pallets, or am I doing trays, and how many am I doing? And so you kind of have to walk through a little bit of a flow chart there just to find out whether you qualify for that or not. So, and the other thing that our palletization add-on does is it will generate the intelligent mail placard for your pallets, and that'll allow you to get the visibility and also the full service discount for that mail. And then to access the palletization add-on, that's available in the Mail Sort Wizard, and you'll just click on the palletization button there, and then you can select whether you're using bundle or sack-based pallets, or if you're doing letters, you can select the tray-based pallet option. You can select what your minimums and maximums are for how big your pallet is. There are all kinds of other options that are available when you're selecting pallets there. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about firm bundles. So firm bundles are kind of a special add-on because they're really only apply to periodicals. But basically, this is if you're dropping off a huge number of copies at a single location. So if you're sending 20 copies to your local grocery store to put on their shelves, then you can combine them all into a firm bundle, and you actually get one piece price for the entire bundle. So it's actually a really big savings that you can get, just because you're not paying for every single copy within that bundle. You're just paying the one bundle charge, which actually is a pretty nominal charge.
Yeah, a common scenario in the periodical world is, for those that may be mailing to teachers where they want to send
30 copies.
For everyone in a class. And so in those scenarios, there can be some huge savings by putting those all into a single bundle, really essentially addressing it to the teacher for that particular class, and having it delivered as a single piece instead of 30 individual copies.
Yep, exactly. So, and then the firm bundle option is again available in the mail sort wizard, and in the periodicals section, there's going to be an option there for creating your firm bundles, and you actually get to select how many copies you would want as a minimum. So, don't make a firm bundle until you've reached 10 copies or 20 copies or whatever makes sense. So next I wanted to talk a little bit about package services. Package services is an interesting add-on, especially since the post office does have this focus now on parcels. And so especially as you start getting into those larger standard mail pieces, things that go over those 16 ounces, you start looking at, okay, what are my next opportunities to get a pre-sort discount? So you can access bound printed matter, library, and media mail discounts through this package services add-on, including Parcel Select Lightweight. So Parcel Select Lightweight is kind of an interesting new classification from the post office. So they kind of took some of the old standard mail parcels and took them out of standard mail and made them a competitive price. So they can actually, unfortunately, they can raise the prices significantly on that, but it's one of those things where really, I mean, standard mail wasn't meant to be a parcel delivery service. So they're trying to pull that parcel delivery service discount away from standard mail. So that's kind of what happened with Parcel Select Lightweight. So unfortunately, you can't use it for fulfillment anymore. You can't use standard mail for fulfillment anymore, but you can at least get a discount versus some of the other parcel delivery rates that are out there if you have a piece that's under a pound. We do offer with our package services the ability to generate the Intelligent Mail Parcel Barcode, the IMPB, and the shipping services file, which is the equivalent to a mail.dat file for a parcel. So to access this, you would select the package services sort class there, and then you would select which type of mail in the sort level. So whether you're doing bound printed matter, Parcel Select Lightweight, media mail, or library mail. Then next we want to talk a little bit about mixed weights. And so mixed weights are kind of an interesting variant of a letter or a flat. And so sometimes what you'll have is a mailing that generally is pretty consistent, but there's a slight variant based on each individual mail piece. So for example, probably the most common example I can come up with is a credit card bill. So you might have...
Some people have one page.
Yep.
Some people have lots of pages.
It depends on, maybe you're trying to rack up your frequent flyer miles or something along those lines. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of variance there in your credit card bills from person to person, even though the actual makeup of the content is pretty similar, right? It's just your statement with a list of all of your purchases and how much you owe for that month. So, but you might have, if you're sending credit card statements, obviously you're doing first class mail, and based on the number of ounces that you have, they're going to have a different rate. So what mixed weights allows you to do is, rather than having to segment out your mailing into several different weight classes and sort them separately, and maybe you have the minimums for that and maybe you don't, you can combine them all into a single mailing, and then we'll apply the correct price based on the weight of that piece. And then we'll also make sure that everything fits in your trays as well.
This just makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, for letter mail, where you have varying number of pages, varying thickness, number of pieces.
Why would you not do this?
Yeah. When you got different number, different combinations and thicknesses, you'll see your maximum tray size just isn't a fixed count. It all depends on what all the different combinations of different pages ends up resulting in. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so bills and statements are really the sweet spot for mixed weights here, and so it's really easy. So you just import in the weight of each piece and the thickness of each piece, and then you select the mixed weight option in the sort wizard, and then we do the rest. We'll take care of the tray handling and make sure that the right number of pieces go into each tray, and that'll vary. Sometimes you'll have a 100-piece tray, and sometimes you'll have 150 based on the thickness of the pieces that are in it. And then, of course, we'll generate all of the required documentation that goes around that as well. So, And then, so here's an example of some of the reports that come out of bulk mailer that are specific to mixed weights, because obviously if you're going to have some variance, they want to be able to audit and make sure that everything lines up and that you have the correct, that you've actually claimed the correct price for the mailing that you're sending. So this will display a manifest of all the pieces that you have in your mailing there. All right, and then we did want to talk a little bit about the additional users add-on. This is available for bulk mailer business. We did a whole webinar about bulk mailer business, I think it was a couple weeks ago now.
That would have been June 9th, and that recording is also posted up on the website.
Yeah, so
we talked a lot about pro versus business and whether or not it made sense to upgrade.
That's right. And so if you've decided that it is time to upgrade, or if you're already a bulk mailer business customer and you want to be able to share your jobs across multiple users, then adding an additional user pack to your bulk mailer subscription makes a lot of sense, because that's going to enable you to have several people logged into bulk mailer at the same time, sharing those templates across all of your users, and then you're able to manage your lists and become more productive that way.
And this also would give you the capability, for example, if we're looking at saying, you were looking at buying the Purge add-on, as Kim noted, there's a lot there to learn. And so if you have a particular individual that is kind of that match expert, then it gives you that ability to specialize, take the job to a certain point, hand it off, and then, it can continue through with using other people.
Yeah, and that handoff isn't, here's an email or, taking a file over, a disk over to someone's desk. It's just dropping it into a folder in bulk mailer business, and they can just watch it and process it as it comes in.
Right.
Makes it really seamless. So, and here's how you'd manage the users within bulk mailer. And you can actually assign different roles to each of the users that you have. So if you have someone who's specialized in a certain area, then you can assign what roles they would apply within your use of bulk mailer there. And we did also want to talk a little bit about EasyTrack. We had another webinar about this as well.
June 16th, also recorded and up on the website.
That's right. So it's just bringing it all back to full circle here. So we have two versions of EasyTrack that are available to our bulk mailer customers. We have a snapshot report that's a kind of an overview here. And we also have the EasyTrack Complete, which is the comprehensive website. It has a complete set of reports with single piece lookup and scheduled reports and custom reports and all kinds of fancy things that you can do in there. And if you're curious about that, then definitely go back and rewatch that webinar recording, because there's a lot of information about the opportunities there with mail tracking. Of course, you're getting that information for free from the post office, but
gotta make sense of it.
You gotta make sense of the noise, right? It's trying to find the signal in the noise, and these reports give you that clarity and that next step of what to do next.
And this feature is in depth enough that we really did spend an hour talking about tracking, the importance of tracking, the past, the current, and the future of tracking. And then we talked about how EasyTrack manages that for you. And so no possible way to go into enough depth to make any sense in this webinar.
Yeah, we have less than 10 minutes left. There's no way.
But one thing to keep in mind is, if timing of delivery is critical and very important to you, EasyTrack is something that you need to help really decide when does it need to be put into the mail to hit your target window that you're trying to hit.
Yeah.
It's no good if the flyer arrives after the sale.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so Rob hinted at this a little bit at the beginning, but we wanted to talk a little bit about combining and kind of making sense of okay, if you have this type of a scenario, what add-ons do you really need? So I put together a couple different scenarios here, and we can talk a little bit about what add-ons we think would make sense in each of those environments. So for me, for mail service providers, really the big ones are palletization, because you're going to be doing some volume there. And if you're interested, start getting into package services. This has been a growth opportunity that I've seen for quite a few mail service providers lately. And being able to add that to your portfolio kind of extends your business out a little bit.
if you look at the trends in mail volume, the one area of growth for the Postal Service is packages. So yeah, it's becoming more and more popular, and it's definitely a growth area for the Postal Service.
Yeah, and a lot of mail service providers are already, at least have looked at fulfillment as another opportunity. And I don't know many people these days who haven't bought something online that's shipped as a parcel. So, Rob's kind of looking up into the air like, nope, not me. But it's
never.
It's kind of the way you do business. I mean, I am a big online shopper because I don't really like them all, and so it's really easy to go online and find what you need, and sometimes you can find it for a better price and it arrives right at your doorstep. It kind of makes sense for mail service providers to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
And for large volume mailers, obviously, the palletization add-on again is something you're going to want to look at. Also, the Merge Purge add-on is a big one for that, because
before your lists become unwieldy.
Yeah, big data is really only as powerful as what you do with it, right? So you've got, especially if you're a large volume mailer, you've got all this data. So how are you managing that? How are you segmenting your lists and making sense, getting that signal from the noise there? For periodical mailers, firm bundles, obviously, if you're doing any type of a periodical that has a concentrated delivery area there, then that's definitely a way to go. And I actually recommend the unlimited move update option for periodical mailers, because a lot of them don't really think about NCOA link as a way to update their addresses, but it really can be a valuable tool to keep up to date with your subscribers.
And periodicals aren't inexpensive to mail, so as a result, you want to make sure you hit the people you're sending them to.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having someone call and say, hey, where's my newspaper? Where's my magazine? So you want to make sure you're keeping track. And then lastly, for the marketing departments, and for this, it's move update, it's data services, and Geocode, and making sure that you have Geocode and RDI, and making sure you have the complete profile for your customers so that you can make those intelligent decisions about how to craft your mail piece, how to craft your message to the person that you're actually sending to.
All right. And definitely one of the trends, and one of the things that I end up hearing a lot about recently is, with all the data that exists out there that you can better use to better understand your customers, really creating what is being referred to as hyper-personalized mail pieces that, instead of doing, a huge, large mailing that is rather generic in nature.
Dear Mr. Shimmick, I notice you're wearing a gray shirt today.
So, the more you can really target the prime candidates for the offer that you're looking to do, that's huge, and it can make major changes in your response rates. And so, if you can really do a great job of tuning the list and really understanding who your target market is, you could actually reduce the size of your volume of what you mail, but then still get the response rates that you're looking for.
Shotgun versus sniper.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right. So webinar upcoming. So I'm going to mention this is webinar number 4 in our Getting the Most Out of Bulk Mailer series, and we've been picked up for another series. So we're going to have Kim and Bob back for a bunch more webinars about bulk mailer and getting the best out of it. Those will be posted up on the SatoriSoftware.com website in the webinar section here coming up shortly. In the meantime, we do have some questions. So let's go ahead and go through these. And I'm just going to throw them out. So somebody jump in. Let's plow through them. We're almost at the top of the hour, so we got to go quick.
All right.
Compare and contrast the DSF Business Residential Address Service in the USPS product with RDI.
Okay, so the DSF is going to give you some information about whether it's a residence or an address. However, it's also going to append the actual walk sequence number. So that's going to be the actual number of the route that carrier is going to take throughout its day, and that's actually the only way that you can get those walk sequence discounts.
And I would argue that, not an argument, but I would propose that if you were actually doing the walk sequencing, you would likely not need the RDI as an option. Like if you bought unlimited walk sequence and just ran it through all the time, one of the pieces of information that you're going to get back from that is whether or not it's a residential or business delivery. And so it is a subset of that data.
Perfect.
Right.
Now, EasyTrack EasyTrack, and again, a lot of this was covered during the EasyTrack webinar, so this would be worth looking at for you, but can EasyTrack help with data analysis? In other words, can you analyze how well targeting was pulled off? So if a mailing goes out and you see the delivery rates, that kind of thing, how well can you dig into that analysis, how effective the mailing was?
So it's not going to give you the information about how the response rate happened. That's something that you'll need to collect, but it will give you information about how it was delivered.
Are you losing your voice, Kim?
I am. We've been talking for quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, so EasyTrack is kind of an interesting service because it gives you that profile about when things are delivered. And so you can actually use that intelligence to plan your next mailing.
And you could, it could potentially help you better gauge, staffing for a call center, by knowing that, hey, this whole area is going to get hit today. I might need to beef up the call center, or, mail delivery's been slower than planned. I can tell some people not to come in today because it's going to be a slow day based on what I'm seeing the Postal Service reporting as being delivered.
It's getting ready for that response, right?
Yeah.
It's not actually going to measure your response rates, but it'll kind of get you ready for that response to happen.
Correct.
Geocode. Can I tease an address out of geocoding, or is it simply radiusing, or maybe how's that work?
So what the Geocode add-on will do is it locates the address basically at the zip +4 level. So it'll assign the latitude and the longitude. There isn't a reverse lookup, so you wouldn't be able to enter a latitude and longitude and then get an address. But then once you have that latitude and longitude, then you can start doing those radius searches.
Perfect. We have a couple of very specific questions here, so people asking for follow-ups, etc. And so we're going to go ahead and we'll have people follow up with you on those specific questions about what you've got going on. So final question, how can we tell whether or not these add-ons are going to be cost-effective for us? What's the best method to determine whether or not unlimited makes sense, or should I have RDI, or how do I figure out what to do with these?
So the first thing is to kind of consider which of these add-ons would apply to you, which ones really sound interesting, which ones sound like they would have some value. And then the next thing is to give us a call. So we've got the number and the email address that are up on the screen there. And all of our reps here are really well versed in each of these individual add-ons. They'll be able to walk you through the pricing and see if they can find a price that works for you. And then also, see, okay, does this add-on really make sense for you as a company?
Before you completely lose your voice there. So that number is there on the screen, and again, we'll be posting this webinar up so you can go back and go ahead and grab that. We do appreciate your time here at Satori Software, and I want to say special thanks to Kim Mock, and I'll turn off your microphone here before you completely lose your voice. Also, thanks, Bob Shimmick. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio. I guess I'll see you in here for Monday.
Yes, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We would really appreciate it if you took a moment to fill out the survey you're going to be offered at the end of this webinar. That's the best way for us to fine-tune our presentation, and we'd really love to hear about things that you want to hear about in our next upcoming webinars. So this is a chance for you to make a suggestion and for us to say, hey, that's exactly something we want to cover. As I mentioned, this webinar in its entirety will be posted in the webinar section of the SatoriSoftware.com website. For Satori Software, I'm Rob Perrin, the Director of Multimedia Marketing. Once again, I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone at Satori for attending, and we at Satori would like to wish you smooth mailing ahead.